Jazzfan 5000, here to give you some insight into the original Xbox gaming console. It's Microsoft Windows. The Windows operating system brought about a foray of, how shall we say, a different way to use your computer. Now, it was all graphically based, what's known as a GUI or graphical user interface, that was used as actually at first it was a separate program from the base operating system, which if you used a PC, that was typically DOS or MS-DOS that you use to access your files, access different programs. But depending on the version of DOS that you used, you could set up Microsoft Windows. This is actually operating system version 3.1 for the PC, and you can see on the box here it says makes your PC easier to use. So, why am I mentioning Windows in this video? Why am I mentioning Microsoft in this video? Because it was an operating system that was the engine for a new game system that was to define the new millennium. And that, my friends, is the original Xbox system. Originally, this was titled as the Direct Xbox because it uses the DirectX engine lifted from the Windows operating system and is what you download or is added as a driver for your graphics card when you install Windows on your PC. So basically, what we have here, of course, is the Xbox system. You have the front panel. This is the disk drive where you insert the game. Of course, you have the power and the eject button. And there are 4 controller ports, which on this 4th one, I have a DVD accessory, which is a sensor. That I'll explain a little bit later. But basically, this is the first video game system to adopt a broadband adapter for connecting to their online service, which became known as Xbox Live. And of course, on the back here we have the audio video port, and specifically this is a heck of a lot simpler than what you have with the Xbox 360 now. You have the power, you have the AV port, and you have the broadband adapter. Nowadays they have all kinds of USB connections and other ways to connect external devices to the Xbox, but we won't get into the 360 right now. But this is the system, and let's go over the controller a little bit too. Now, I'm going to explain the controller itself. I'm going to explain some of the devices that were made for the Xbox, the original Xbox, and I'm going to compare them to one gaming system in particular, which is the Sega Dreamcast. And I previously did a review of the Dreamcast, which you can see here on this channel. But here's the controller, and there's some it's a very familiar look. Now, I don't have any of the original controllers that came with the system that were released in 2001, but this is your basic controller system. It looks a lot like the controller that you have for the 360 again, but I'm trying to think specifically if, just right off the top of my head, if the controllers for the 360 have the memory card ports. I don't think they do. But I can compare this to another controller. Now, if I had the original Xbox controller, you'd see the similarities because the size of the controller is a little bit bigger, a little bit beefier, and kind of looks a lot like the Dreamcast controller, which you can see the similarities here. Of course, there's different colors for the buttons, but that's to go without saying. You have, like what you have with the controller for the Xbox, you have the memory card slots. Here you have the VMU slots, which I have been using quite extensively, as you can see. There's two. You can see real close there. Of course, the VMU had the on-screen LCD screen. The Xbox controllers are just memory cards. So, very simple. A little bit simpler than the Dreamcast controller, but has the same type of design. Also, the Sega Dreamcast was powered by Windows CE, which was an embedded version of Windows that was specifically used with Palm Pilots, handheld PCs, and other handheld devices at the time, which we're talking like late 90s, early 2000s. So let's take a look at some of the gameplay. Just a few more little factoids about the Microsoft Xbox and the development, as well as the gameplay that's involved with the original Xbox. The Microsoft DirectX team, as far back as 1998, this consisted of 4 people. They basically saw how much better graphics were, how much better the graphics and gameplay were becoming with the PlayStation and Nintendo, as well as the Sega, with the Saturn and the Dreamcast. They wanted to beef up their market. They had their own gaming market, basically, which really was not all that big compared to some of the consoles, but they wanted to beef up the demographic. And they wanted to extend that from the Windows platform and from the operating system platform to a whole new gaming console. Previous to the Windows operating system, a lot of the great games that came out for the PC were on the DOS platform. And the graphics for that were superb compared to a lot of the consoles that were coming out in the early 90s. They not only wanted to take some of the demographic from the PlayStation 2, but they also wanted to include that DVD feature that the PlayStation 2 had as well. Now, that required some added accessories in order to play DVDs on the Xbox. Here's the sensor, and that basically plugs into one of the Joy ports, and you use a remote that is specifically geared for the Xbox, and those are the accessories that you get in order to play DVDs. The PlayStation 2 was the first system to offer its game in a DVD box format. Before that, you had the PlayStation, which had a CD format. They had their own specific technology for those CDs that you could play. You could play the game in the PlayStation console. When they released the PlayStation 2, of course, they extended that a little further, basically making a DVD box format. The Xbox took that one step a little further by offering a DVD box format, but it was a different color. It was like a green color for the box itself. As you can see, here's the Doom cartridge, and the green borders. The whole case is basically green. Yeah, as mentioned, both the Sega Dreamcast and Xbox ran on a Windows platform, of course. Xbox, of course, used the DirectX format or the DirectX driver for its gaming playability, specifically emphasizing the graphics. So this brings us to the end of another episode of Jazzfan's Picks. I hope you found this episode rather entertaining as well as informative. Please subscribe, leave any comments, and I want to wish everyone happy gaming, happy holidays, and goodbye now.